Hi, I'm Ariel. You're watching She Wants the Diction, and today I'm going to be doing the obscure books tag. Because we all know I love a good obscure book. I am back because I took a week-long hiatus from a lot of different things like social media, caffeine, fucking book content. I wasn't watching or doing any of that for a week. Well, at least I wasn't posting on social media, but so I'm back from that. I'm also back in the yellow chair because I just want to be comfortable for today, and sitting on the edge of my bed really isn't that comfortable. I'm also back on my bullshit. So I first saw this tag on Beck's channel at Mooney Reads by Starlight, and I highly recommend checking out their channel because I absolutely love listening to them talk and just the way that they talk about books. I don't know how to describe it. It's so in depth. But anyways, it was originally created by Ladette M. And obviously I will link to both of their channels below. And I highly encourage actually going and watching the original tag because she's quite funny. So first off is The Gift. Someone bought this for you. That's the only reason you own this. And I'm gonna go with the book that Charlotte over at Tired Mama Tries to Read actually sent to me, just because book people are crazy nice. I've had multiple people in the book community send me books, offer to send me books. Honestly, if there's a community that you could be a part of, this is one of the nicest. I'm not saying it doesn't have its toxic book Twitter areas and petty dramas and bullshit, but in general, I feel like I've had the best experiences one-on-one with individuals in this community ever. And I feel like this question is kind of supposed to be negative, somebody bought you something, but it wasn't quite right. And in this case, I feel like any book that anyone's ever bought and sent me from the book community has been spot on to my interests. So this is not a negative thing at all, me showing this, but it's something that I would never buy for myself because you guys know I don't really buy new books, and I would especially never think to buy myself a signed copy and a nice ass hardback like this. Damn. This is gorgeous. This is fancy. Signed copy is just wow, the luxury. This is the Gucci of the book world or something, or maybe a first edition would be the Gucci of the book world, but I don't know, I was just so shocked by this because, she surprised me with it to begin with, and I was just wow, wow, this is, I can't even touch this, it's too beautiful. But anyways, so what this is Fight of the Century, writers reflect on 100 years of landmark ACLU cases. And this is edited by Michael Chabon and Eilert Waldman. And I've actually read, I believe this is husband and wife, and I've actually read something by the wife before. It was A Really Good Day, How Microdosing Made a Mega Difference in My Mood, My Marriage, and My Life. And this was one of the first books that I ever read when I was getting interested in microdosing and alternative holistic therapies for depression, anxiety. So I'm super curious for this. I feel like on the back it shows you all the different writers who, I believe each one is kind of assigned to a different ACLU case, and then they write about it. And I recognize a lot of the authors on this list. Britt Bennett, Neil Gaiman, Lauren Groff, Yaa Gyasi, Marlon James, Victor LaValle. So there's a lot of freaking big names on here. Jacqueline Woodson, Jessamine Ward. And I like that I'm seeing a lot of black women on this list and not just, the typical white people. So yeah, I just thought this was really cool and really kind of her. If you don't already follow Charlotte, you should definitely go and check her out. She'll be linked. I feel like her videos, because she usually does them in one take, have such a homey, cozy vibe to them. And she also does these things where she'll show you her garden or just wherever she is. So it's more than just what I do, which is sit down videos, right? She also puts sort of vlog footage in there. So yeah, it feels really personal. So definitely check her out. She is a very cool human being. Moving right along to The Fandom, a book from a TV, game, film, or music fandom. Bonus points if you're no longer part of that fandom. I have been a part of a lot of fandoms, especially back in my Tumblr days. I feel even before I knew what a fandom was, I had that type of obsessive personality to where I would get obsessed with certain things like Zelda games or what have you, and I would be writing, I feel I was writing fan fiction before I even understood what fan fiction was, So I feel like the two fandoms that I've really been a big part of throughout my life have been the Merlin fandom and then the Star Trek fandom. And so I don't really have any of them anymore, but like as a representative of this, I grabbed Sci-Fi TV From the Twilight Zone to Deep Space Nine, the authoritative, magnificently opinionated guide to the first fabulous 50 years. And this was kind of a random flea market find. I used to, and this is probably the nerdiest thing that I'm ever going to admit on this channel, but I used to actually, in high school, I had a bunch of like the Star Trek novelizations with those like corny ass illustrated covers. If I can, I'll try to put like an example over this, but I had like bags and bags of these books. And one summer in high school, I think it was like freshman year, I spent the entire summer just reading these Star Trek novelizations. And then when I was done with them, I actually gave bags and bags of them, like I'm talking like in the hundreds, to my best friend, and I don't know if she still has them or not. I think she might have gotten rid of them by now, but yeah, that's definitely, I don't think I would sit around reading novelizations anymore. And I mean, I don't ever not consider myself part of that fandom. Like, I feel like the original series is always going to hold like a special place in my heart, but and it's not like I actively am constantly like watching Star Trek and like keeping up with Discovery and, you know, the new series that they're coming out with. But I feel like it's always like a part of my consciousness, if that makes sense. Like, Star Trek raised me, okay? The Micromanager. Bought it for work or uni. Oh, that's like a very, is it a British thing? Uni, instead of calling it like college, like they call it university. But anyways, bought it for work or uni, but never read it. And so this one's gonna be kind of embarrassing. I bought an audiobook of something called, hold up, I've lost the page. Oh yeah, it was called Radical Candor, Be a Kick-Ass Boss Without Losing Your Humanity by someone named Kim Scott. And the reason I bought this audiobook, which I shouldn't have bought it because I didn't even finish listening to it, but at the time that I was like working at the convenience store as an assistant manager, which is actually apparently, if you believe in like personality types, is one of the worst possible jobs for my personality type. Like, INTP and being a manager is apparently like really, really bad. Like, working in retail or being a salesperson is like the worst possible job. Like, it's literally on the list of like worst jobs for my personality type. And I'm not even surprised because that job like destroyed me and destroyed my mental health and just like my life. So I really, really hated being a manager because I hate having to be in charge of people and responsible for other people's work. And I had a hard time like getting people to do what I wanted because I feel like I like don't have that charisma and like I'm not direct enough or aggressive enough or mean enough. Like, so I would just end up like having to do all of this work myself because like no one would help me. And so I was trying to find a way to like just be better at the job. Like, I was desperate for any sort of advice or information that would like help me be better at it. And I really just think like it was not for me, but like I was trying to find some sort of solution. So that's how that came about. The next thing is The Boss, a book you bought to organize your life, your business, or your home. And I feel like I have things in a couple categories for this. I was just talking about like personality types, but like I really love this stuff, like the nerd that I am. So I have a book on MBTI and also have a book on the Enneagram, which is kind of stupid because you can get like all of this information online. So I don't know why I bought this stuff. And I've said this before about personality types, is I really feel like it's sort of like a nerdy horoscope. Like, it's kind of slightly more scientific, but also like kind of pseudoscience-y. But I feel like in regards to like personal growth, it's been really helpful for me because I remember in college they made us take the MBTI, which I had no idea what it was. And then, this is kind of embarrassing, they made us, in a class of like maybe 30 people, they made us raise our hands as she read off each type. And I remember like she read off, I thought nothing of it. She read off mine and I was the only one in the fucking room that raised my hand, and everyone just like looked at me and I was like, what does it mean? And now I feel like it's like, it kind of explains why I'm such a weirdo and makes me feel like just like less of an alien. And also I feel like forces me to like look at my weaknesses and try to work on those and just like, what are my strengths? And I don't know, I just feel like it's like helpful for like personal development. So yeah, I bought both of these for like $1 a piece or something. And then I also really like reading books on minimalism. You guys have seen this on my channel before, but this is Essentialism. And this is really dumb. Like, don't buy this book or anything because it basically boils down to only say yes to the things that are essential and say no to everything else because you have a limited amount of time. Like, literally this book could have been one sentence, but I love reading these types of books, like Cal Newport's books, even though they kind of have like more of a business leaning, and I don't know. I just like the idea of having like a simple, like frugal life with like no waste. And like I have this fantasy of like being a super organized person. Like I would say I'm clean, but like I don't know how to describe it. Like organized messy maybe, but I have this fantasy of like being this person that's like very much a planner and everything's always clean and my bed is always made, but like right now I can look over at my bed right now and tell you that shit's not made. You know, so yeah, like organized chaos, that's what I feel like I have. So, and then as far as like home, I wouldn't say I specifically bought this to like sort of design my house around or anything, but I find it really interesting. This is Young Designs in Living by Barbara Plum. And this is really like a coffee table / picture book that shows you like a bunch of interior design from like 60s and 70s. And I really like looking at like older designs, particularly from this time period. I'm not saying that means I've incorporated any of it like into my home. I don't think I'm the best designer. I don't think I really care a lot about it, to be honest, but I like the idea of like living in a place that looks like something out of here, you know? Like, how cool is this? Your couch is just like sunken into the floor of your room. Like, I don't know. I just love the aesthetics of it. So yeah, I guess it's kind of related. Okay, the next prompt is the Caretaker, bought from a spiritual shop or in the spiritual section. As you guys know, I am not really spiritual and or religious. I am an agnostic atheist. So yeah, I don't really buy into the sort of heebie-jeebie type stuff. I also grew up in a very strict Christian fundamentalist home, and so I obviously, as a queer person, there were a lot of conflicts there growing up, and so I have a hard time like talking about or just anything to do with religion. I feel like I really have been turned off to it for life just because of like the traumatic experiences that I went through because of who I was as a person and the religious beliefs of my family. So like, yeah, that's not something that I really enjoy or would really seek out. I have found myself attracted to like a lot of Eastern philosophies, like ones in like Buddhism and stuff, and I feel like mindfulness and yoga and different practices like that that sort of originate in the East have been, I feel like certain elements have been intriguing to me, but I also don't fully agree with everything about Buddhism, like reincarnation and different things like that. So yeah, I'm not a practicer of any sort of religion. So I'm going to skip that question, I guess is the long answer. Next one is the Hobbyist. You mentioned this hobby one time and now everyone gives you books / things related to it, or you wanted to try a new hobby. I don't think people buy me a bunch of books related to a hobby. I just kind of buy myself books. If that makes sense. Like I feel like I don't get gifts, or I feel like I don't get books as gifts from people in my real life. I have a bunch of different things to show. The first thing, and I think you guys have seen this before, is Chess the Easy Way by someone named Reuben Fine, which is kind of a hilarious name, but and this is an old guide from the 60s about how to play chess, like written for beginners. And I actually was at one point working on like reading this, and I had the chessboard out and was like moving it around and like practicing the moves and everything. I've wanted to relearn how to play chess for like years and years because I remember playing it in elementary school. Like I would actually get out of class to go play on a Simpsons chessboard with like one of the student teachers or something, like in the hallway. And so I'm like, if I knew how to play this in elementary school and I remember really liking it, I didn't understand what the Simpsons was, but I remember really liking like playing chess. So I've always been like, man, I should go back and relearn how to play chess because like if I knew how to play it then, I should know how to play it. Like I should be able to learn how to play it as an adult, but for some reason I just like can't seem to stick with it. Like, every few months I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn how to play chess, and then never again. Like I'll play like one game. So I don't know if I'm ever going to fucking really learn how to play chess at a level that I would like. I've also got a bunch of writing books, especially when I was getting into like trying to figure out like where to submit or publish my poetry, and I was like getting really, really into writing. So I have this Poets Market 2016, and that's how you know how long ago this was that I was trying to do this. Like I bought this that year, like this was the newest edition that was out. And I bought it at Barnes & Noble, so I paid full fucking price for this, $30. So it's still all nice and shit. I think a lot of the literary magazines that are mentioned in here are now closed or out of business or whatever, but yeah, so I have a bunch of writing books. This is 642 Things to Write About. I have this old writing textbook from the 60s that I just kind of thought would be interesting to maybe like browse or read, but true to form, I haven't looked at it at all since I've bought it, and it's called Writing with a Purpose. If my answer to this question isn't telling you how many hobbies like I stop and start, then I don't know what is. But I also recently bought this, shout out to Beck again, because I ordered from Better World Books because I saw them like talking about it a lot on Instagram and just posting about it a lot. And so I decided to order this, well, technically it's a textbook from them, but it's like a beginner's guide to HTML and CSS, how to design and build websites. And like, I'm fully aware that, you know, there are much more complex programming languages, but I've always thought like I've liked computers and technology, and so maybe going into programming would be a good career path for me, especially because your work is so like individual. Like I remember playing around with HTML as a kid and like trying to design my own website and stuff like that, and always having a PC and really liking, you know, messing around on there. So I was like, oh, well, maybe I could just try this and just see how I feel about it. And as you can see, I got through, in a couple sittings, I got through like maybe a fourth of the book, but it's been a couple weeks since I've picked it up and I could already feel myself doing that thing where I lose interest. But yeah, this is one of the many things that I'm interested in exploring. Also feel like programming has such the stigma around it for me because I always have felt like math was one of my weakest points. And like, I've always thought of programming as like, you have to be really good at math, like you have to be really smart. And I feel like, I don't know, I've just never felt good at math like I have felt good at English or good at writing. I never felt like it came to me naturally, but I don't know that programming really is about math. I think it might actually be more about logic. Oh, and the other thing I have is, as far as hobbies, this isn't technically a book, but I feel like this is another one of my hobbies, is running. And I recently canceled my subscription to Runner's World. And the reason that I did that is because I felt like I wasn't getting enough value based off of the price I was paying. Like, even if it was only $20 per year, I feel like I would only read like the occasional good article in here. And also the gear in here, so expensive. Like, this is catering to a clientele that can afford to drop $200 on a pair of running leggings and $500 on a pair of running shoes. And it's like, running does not have to be this expensive ass endeavor. And also, I kind of find it kind of hilarious that, like, just now are they covering Ahmaud Arbery, which, if you don't know, was the black man that was murdered while he was out running, which is terrifying and should never happen. But yeah, only just now is this magazine acting like they're inclusive, and it's just like, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like I can tell what demographic it's written to cater to, and it's not me. Also, if I want to read this, it's available through my library's digital app, so we good. Next one is The Serial Killer. If people saw you reading it, they'd be worried. And for this might be a bit meta, but I actually have some books about serial killers here because for some reason, when it comes to true crime, that's one of my main interests / focus. So I've got Silence of the Lambs, I've got Mindhunter, which the Netflix series was based off of. Love that series. And In Cold Blood. So yeah, I feel like if someone saw me reading these in public, they would be like, you know, like, why are you so interested in serial killers? And I can't answer that for you. I feel like abnormal psychology, as they called it when I was studying it in high school, and like mental disorders and all that type of stuff is like really, really fascinating to me for some reason. Psychology in general, so that could be why. I don't know. The next thing is The Traveler. The Only Way You Afford to See the Outside World, a book about a foreign place. Bonus points if you've never been there. And I don't really have one of these. I feel like I became aware while looking for books for this prompt that I don't really pick up travel books. I'm not really interested in travel books. But something that I thought might work for this as far as like location is like books about the Midwest. Because for some reason I bought Midwest Foraging because I think my boyfriend was like getting really into collecting plants or collecting mushrooms from around, and so I thought this would be helpful and I bought it, but I don't think he ever used it. But we have a bunch of books like this that's like trees for the Midwest, mushrooms for the Midwest, like different things. So it's not so much like a location that we'd want to travel to, but just like identifying plants that are from where we live. I remember I also had a book of like hikes in the Midwest, different hikes. And I don't know if we ever used that either, but damn, I wasted money. But I don't feel like I have like a bucket list of anywhere that I want to travel. Like, because I've traveled so little in my life, I feel like I would be interested in going almost anywhere. Like, I've never been out of the country, and I've only been to, like, a handful of states. And I feel like this is also, like, sort of a financial thing. Like, people with more financial means can afford to travel more places, and obviously not having a huge financial means you're pretty much stuck where you are. Like, if I had financial means, I would have fucking been moved already. Like, I would not still be in Springfield, Missouri, but... Okay, the next thing is the obscure. The weirdest, most obscure book you own. There is no other tag for this book. This is its time to shine. I'm just gonna let this sink in. Enough said, right? No, but seriously, I believe my best friend found this at a thrift store or flea market, don't know, and then gave it to me as sort of like a gift. Like, do you guys remember when all those memes of Shrek were going around, like, Tumblr? Or, like, just anything to do with Shrek. I don't know why, like, people from our generation are so obsessed with doing memes with Shrek, but there's a lot of them. And so, yeah, this exists. So yeah, that is the obscure book tag. I'm not going to tag anyone, but I would love to see your guys' obscure, weird books that don't really get talked about in the book community. So if you're at all interested, I tag you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.